My name is Paula Dent, 24, an age when every step feels like an uphill climb, but I finally feel solid ground beneath my feet. A year ago, I graduated from college with trembling knees and a sliver of hope, and now I work as a marketing coordinator at a small company, earning my $42,000 a year and learning to live like an adult, modestly, but for the first time, on my own 2 feet. I had plans. Small and fluttering, like chicks in my palms. I was certain that life was just around the corner, just a little bit longer, and it would truly begin. And then the phone rang. Dad, too early, too early. His voice took on that hard, steely edge that always appeared when he was about to lay something on my shoulders. Paula, will you come over after work? I need to discuss something important. In our family, important never meant pleasant, but I nodded, as if he could see it, and promised to come. After work, the car pulled up to my parents' house. I seemed to see it through new eyes, smaller, cramped, as if the walls had furrowed and retreated toward each other. My father was sitting in the kitchen, his back straight, his face focused, neat stacks of papers in front of him. My mother stood behind him, fiddling with her fingers, as if trying to hide something in her palms. What happened? I asked, although part of me already knew. It had always known. My father nodded at the papers. We need your help. The house needs repairs, the roof is leaking, the foundation is cracking, we're planning to take out a loan. I listened, my insides bracing for the blow. My mother leaned forward, her voice thin and almost apologetic. Our credit isn't the best right now. Your father's medical bills have really thrown us off balance. The bank said they needed a guarantor. My stomach tightened. A guarantor? Me? It's a formality, my father assured me too hastily. We need someone with a good track record. It won't reflect on you in any way. You just sign and that's it. I looked at the top sheet. The amount was bold and relentless, $35,000. Dad, that's a lot of money. My mother's voice became almost childish. Baby, believe me, if there was another way, water is already flowing down the hallway. We're afraid the ceiling will collapse. And we can't do it without a guarantor? My father exhaled heavily. Then the interest rate will be 18%. With you, it's 7%. You're saving us thousands. I should have gotten up and left, asked for time to think, say no, but I grew up in an atmosphere of quiet, sticky guilt. She became my second skin. They paid for my education, the roof over my head was theirs. We did this for you. These words echoed even when no one else spoke them, and there was another truth, bitter and absurd. I wanted them to be proud of me. I wanted to be comfortable, untroubled, a good girl. Okay, I said, almost whispering, where should I sign? Mom seemed to collapse back into her body, sighing with relief. Dad held out his pen. I signed where directed, initialed where required. Mom hugged me so tightly my ears began ringing. You can't imagine how much you've helped us out. Just a signature, I replied. It wasn't just a signature. 3 months later, the meaning of those words hit me like ice water. I was eating a salad at my desk when my phone vibrated. The number was unfamiliar. Is this Paula Dent? Yes, who's speaking? Jennifer, First National Bank, credit account ending in 4782, you're listed as a guarantor. It's been 2 months without payments. It was like someone had pulled the plug and the blood had drained from my veins. Excuse me, what? They haven't paid? It's 63 days overdue. If payment isn't received within 30 days, the debt will be turned over to collections. I didn't even have time to process it before I was already pressing Daddy. He answered cheerfully, as if he hadn't been the one with the quagmire underfoot. Hi, Paula. How are you? The bank called me. His voice trembled. You haven't paid for 2 months. A pause, then lazily. Oh, yeah, there were some extra expenses. It's okay, we'll make it up to you. Dad. They said they'd hand the debt over to collectors. It'll ruin my credit. We'll figure it out, don't worry so much, honey. And he hung up. He didn't even let me continue. 2 weeks later, the bank called again. It was already 77 days late, penalties upon penalties. interest like mold. To cover the whole, I need $2,400, almost my entire monthly net salary, $2,930. This time, I called my mom, my voice broke. I can't pay it, they need $2,400, they're going to pay off the debt to the collectors. Her voice dropped somewhere, quiet, upset, and I felt it. She was upset not with the situation, but with me. Baby, we're really trying to figure this out ourselves, it's just tough right now, could you cover the payment? Just this once, we'll pay you back. I don't have $2,400. But you have a job, Paula, we raised you, we paid for your college, it's very important. The old, sticky guilt rose in a wave, familiar, almost homey. I opened the bank app, my savings, $2,800, my entire stash, which I'd been collecting bit by bit, like a squirrel collecting nuts. I stared at the numbers for a long time, as if hoping they'd disappear or increase, and then I transferred $2,500. The bank teller on the other end of the line sounded like a sack of sand had been lifted from her shoulders. That completely covers the current debt, but keep in mind, the monthly payment is $800. My heart sank. $800? Yes, ma'am. I immediately called my father. I paid $2,500, the monthly payment is $817, will you be able to make it? Yes, of course, it's just a tough time right now. This tough time lasted exactly a month. Because 34 days later, the bank called again. They didn't make the payment again, and then again, and again. For the next 6 months, I paid those damn $800 myself. Every time I tried to talk, my parents repeated the same old story. We'll pay it all back, things are tough right now, don't abandon your family. Meanwhile, I skipped meals, cut back on everything I could, canceled my subscriptions, and pretended everything was fine every time Evan asked why I looked so stressed out. Then one evening, scrolling through Facebook, I came across photos. My parents, in Florida, on the beach, smiling, mom with her new manicure on display, dad in front of his giant new TV. I stared at those pictures until my eyes stung. The following month, for the first time in my life, I couldn't pay my rent. I called my mom, barely holding the phone, the tears were choking me. I can't take it anymore, I missed the rent because I paid your mortgage. We really appreciate everything you do, she said evenly, really. Then you pay the mortgage yourself. Money is tight right now. You went to Florida last month, it was paid for in advance, she snapped, and don't talk to me like that, we're your parents, we sacrificed for you, and now you want to turn your back on us. I hung up, I stared at my account balance, $312 until payday in 8 days, and another mortgage payment looming. I couldn't live like this anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I scrolled through articles about the nightmares of co-signing, about financial abuse, about adult children drowning in other people's debt. One comment caught me off guard, cold as a bucket of ice. Stop paying from the account they can see, they'll suck everything out of you, protect yourself first. Protect yourself first, those 3 words felt like they unlocked a cage in my chest. That morning, I went to a different bank and opened a new account, one no one knew about. While I was filling out the paperwork, a strange sensation washed over me, as if I were learning to breathe again, clean air, free. I left the bank, clutching the folder to my chest like a shield. The air felt fresh, sharp, as if I'd emerged from the fog I'd been mired in for months. I didn't tell anyone about the new account, not Evan, not my friends, especially not my parents. It was the first thing in my life in a long time that was completely mine. That same day, at home, I sat on the floor, opened my laptop, and logged into online banking for my old account, the same one my mom opened when I was 16, a rainy day account, as she liked to say. Peering into it as if it were half hers. I flipped through the last 6 months, 50, 100, 200, 40, 60. Round numbers. At first, I thought I'd simply forgotten to buy something, groceries, gas, coffee, but the dates were odd, and the amounts were always equally neat. My heart sank. I continued on, 8 months 10 12. They'd been taking money for over a year, in small increments, carefully, so I wouldn't notice. Each time, I blamed myself for not keeping a close eye on my budget again. Meanwhile, I was paying off their loan. The world swam before my eyes, my fingers trembled, and I held my wrist to keep scrolling. My own mother was extracting money from me while I starved. When I looked up, the sun was already setting, casting a golden, almost solemn beam onto the carpet. Dust floated in it. The room seemed too quiet, stunned, as if waiting for me to collapse. There were no tears, only emptiness. I transferred the rest of the money to a new account. I left $10 in the old one, enough to keep it open, enough for them to see I had nothing left to give. Then I called my father. He answered on the second ring. "Paula, hi, did something happen?" "Dad," I said slowly, as if the words were heated, "did you know Mom was taking money from my account?" Silence, muffled, heavy. I pressed my forehead with my fingers. From that same account from school, she'd been taking money for months, over a year. It was for groceries, he finally managed, as if he was trying to cover up something much larger, when things were tough. "For groceries?" I let out a short, angry laugh, not a hint of a smile. "A whole year, while I was single-handedly paying off your mortgage? We raised you in this house," he flared, "it's family money." "No," my voice wavered, but I didn't back down. "It's my money, from my job, from my life." "Paula, stop making a big deal out of it." "I transferred everything to a new account," I said evenly, "one you can't access, and I'm not going to pay your loan anymore." "What?" His voice cracked with genuine panic. "You can't do this." "It already has." "Paula, listen," he raised his voice, as if he could shout down reality. "If you stop paying, you're screwed, your credit will be ruined. It's already ruining my life. If you refuse, we can't handle it, you'll start from scratch." "No," I said quietly, "you will." I hung up before he could continue. My hand was shaking, my fingers felt like lead. I stared at the blank wall, feeling a fragile, timid breath run through my chest for the first time in months. For the first time in 7 agonizing months, I could breathe without suffocating, not fully, but enough to feel a faint glimmer of light in the darkness I lived in. The first 3 days after I stopped paying were strangely quiet, too quiet. Mom didn't call, Dad didn't knock on the door, no accusatory voices, no tearful manipulations. Everything around me was frozen, like the eye of a storm. On the 4th day, the phone came to life. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I closed my eyes, then answered. "Paula," her voice became surprisingly soft, as if I were an animal being persuaded not to bite. "We need to talk." "Okay. Your father and I are very offended by what you did." I almost laughed, hoarsely, tiredly. "Offended?" "I simply transferred my money to my account, and I told the truth." "You accused us of stealing." "You took money from my account without asking," I said. "That's not an accusation, it's a fact." "That was our account too, Paula, for a rainy day, we opened it together. Not for your trips to Florida, not for groceries while I was paying for you, and definitely not for a new TV. We're family," she insisted, "and family helps." "I helped," I said, "for 7 months, over $8,000, on a loan I didn't even take out." "We appreciate it," she replied easily, slipperily, "but abandoning us completely? That's cruel." "Cruel?" My voice broke. "I can't pay the rent, I eat cheap noodles every day, I have nothing left." "We raised you," she snapped, "feeding and clothing you for 18 years, not for free, and now, when we need help, you turn away." Guilt pricked like an old habit stitched to my nerves, but I forced myself through the surge. "I'm not turning away," I whispered, "I'm setting boundaries." "We can't pay the mortgage now," she said. "You went to Florida. It was paid for in advance." "A new TV?" "The old one broke." I gritted my teeth. "You promised to pay yourself, and they never paid." She took a deep breath. "We're parents, you're a child." "I'm 24. And children should respect their parents. Somewhere inside, something quiet, cold, had finally snapped. "Mom," I said, "I love you, but I can't pay your bills anymore." The pause stretched like frost on glass, then her voice turned icy. "I guess it's all clear now." She hung up, my hands felt weak, my body frail, as if I could break on my own breath. 2 days later, my father called. "Paula," he said in a heavy tone, "we need to sort this out. The bank is demanding payment, we don't have the money." "It's not my problem anymore," I said. "It's just as much yours. You're on the loan, if we don't pay, your credit will be ruined, too." "I know," I replied, almost in a whisper, "but that's it, Dad, I can't take it anymore." "Could you cover this month?" His voice softened, as if he were simply asking for help carrying the bags. "Just one, give us time to get our act together." "I've already covered 7 months for you," I reminded him. "That's why I'm asking. Just one last time, Paula, just one." "No." He paused for a second, then he exhaled heavily and launched into accusations. "When your credit goes to hell, when you can't get a car or rent an apartment, remember, you chose this." "You chose it," I replied softly, "to take out a loan you couldn't afford." A deep pause hung over us, and then he flared up. "Ungrateful. We gave you everything, and you treat us like this?" And he slammed down the phone. I remained sitting on the edge of the bed, as if the world had suddenly been torn apart. I was shaking with rage, shame, and doubt. Everything had become one unbearable mess. Maybe I really am wrong? Maybe I'm selfish? A bad daughter? I couldn't find an answer. But later, when the tears finally dried up, I suddenly felt something akin to hardness. There was no turning back, and, frankly, I didn't want to go back. The week turned into a slow crumbling of everything old. Every day felt like a thread being pulled from the fabric I'd so desperately tried to hold on to. I rejected calls, muted notifications, convinced myself not to give in, not again. But consequences don't care about our boundaries. On Monday afternoon, another call, an unfamiliar number. I hung up. A minute later, a transcript appeared. "This is Jennifer from First National Bank. The account is 45 days past due. We need to discuss repayment terms." My stomach churned, but I simply deleted the message. Toward the end of the 3rd week, a registered letter arrived, a thick envelope, heavy paper, cold legalese, notice of default, legal action imminent. My hands shook as if I were holding hot metal, not paper. It had happened, for real now, and knowing it didn't make it any easier. I still didn't pay. By the 4th week, they found a way to get through again. The number was unfamiliar, but the message was recognizable. "Paula, they're threatening to sue. Please, just one payment, we beg you." The word beg hit me right in the ribs, the thin, insidious rope they always used to pull me back in. I blocked the number, and the next one, and the next. I thought that with each block, the nightmare would fade, give me space, but the world decided to shake me once more, abruptly, like an electric shock. On Thursday morning, my new bank called. "Miss Dent," said a calm male voice, "this is David from customer service. There was an attempt to access your account today." "What?" I barely managed to croak out. "The woman introduced herself as your mother. She said she wanted to make a deposit." Something sank in my chest. "We told her that only the owner has access," he continued. "She was very upset." "You didn't tell her anything?" The words clung to each other. "No information, but I thought I'd warn you in case it was part of a bigger problem." If only he'd known. "It really is my mother, but she's not allowed, never. We've marked it, no one but you will have access under any circumstances." When I hung up, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a sense of intrusion. She'd tried to get into the place where my only defense remained. And yet, that wasn't rock bottom. The real rock bottom was waiting 2 days later. I returned from work, my keys already in hand, when I noticed something was wrong. The door to my house was ajar. My heart sank and sank into my throat. my fingers felt icy. I carefully pushed the door open. "Hello?" My voice was barely holding itself together. And then I saw her. My mother was sitting on my sofa, as if she'd always lived here. Her hands were folded smoothly in her lap. She was looking straight at me, as if waiting for me to smile and ask if she'd like some tea. "How did you get here?" I asked, my voice breaking into steel. She gently lifted the familiar silver key. "You gave me a spare when you moved. You asked me to keep it just in case." "It's not just in case," I whispered, feeling something inside me slowly but surely break. Tears appeared in her eyes instantly, too fast, too rehearsed, a familiar old play. "Paula, please, sit down, we need to talk." "No," I said, holding onto the doorframe as if it were my only support. "Go away. I'm not leaving until you listen." I remained standing. If I sat down, I'd collapse, and that's exactly what she wants. "You have 5 minutes," I said. She took a shaky breath. "The bank is threatening to sue. If we don't make a payment by the end of the month, they'll sue. We could lose the house. Then pay the mortgage." My voice turned icy. "We can't," she snapped. "We're in a tough spot. But good enough to go on vacation and buy electronics." "You're taking everything out of context." "Really?" I felt something hard flare in my chest. "And what's the context of you trying to access my new bank account?" Her gaze darted around like a cornered mouse. "I just wanted to make sure you had the means to help." "So you wanted to raid my account behind my back?" "I'm your mother," she said, as if it sounded like a legal right. "I have that right." "No," I interrupted, "you don't." She covered her eyes with her hand, as if seeking refuge in pity. "Paula, darling, I beg you, help me one more time, the last time, then we'll sort this all out." "You said that 7 months ago." "It's different now." "How?" I asked, not giving an inch. "How is it different now?" "If you don't help," her voice became almost inaudible, "we'll lose everything." I looked at her for a long moment, at that disheveled mask of tragedy, at the chipped mascara, at the fear hidden behind the accusations. This was my mother, and yet something else surfaced beneath the surface. The memory of the money withdrawn from my account, the beach photos taken that same day when I couldn't pay for food, lies, guilt, manipulation. I knew perfectly well what would happen in a month if I gave in. "I'm sorry," I said quietly but firmly, "I can't." "Can't or won't," she spat. "Both." She stood up abruptly, her face became stony, cold. "Then there's nothing more to say." "Mom. You chose money over family," she snapped. "We'll see how you live with that." She walked to the door and placed the spare key on the nightstand. The metal touched the wood with a dry, small blow that cut deeper than words. "You don't need him anymore," she said quietly, "since we're strangers in your home now." And she left, without looking back. The silence she left behind was oppressive, as if the air had become thick and sticky. I closed the door, turned the lock, and simply slid down the wall, on the floor, opposite the key. My eyes stung, but no tears fell, not now. I felt like a monster, a bad daughter, a bad person, but beneath this pressure, deep inside, another feeling smoldered, a small, stubborn, searingly honest one: relief. The following weeks were a gray, endless haze: letters, calls, threats. My credit score plummeted, as if I were watching a car crash in slow motion. 720. 680. 650, each dip was a new punch to the gut. My relatives joined in, like a flock: uncles, aunts, people I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. "How could you do this to your parents? They're losing everything. Paula, you're cruel, heartless." I stopped answering the phone if my name was on the screen. I was falling apart at work, I was missing deadlines, I was losing documents. My boss carefully asked if everything was okay. I smiled and lied. Nothing was okay. And then, in the evening, there was a dull, confident knock. I winced, went to the door, and opened it. A man in a black jacket stood in the doorway, holding an envelope. Are you Paula Dent? Yes. You're being served. He thrust the papers at me and disappeared, as if he'd never been there, and I was left standing in the doorway, clutching a thick stack of legal documents, heavy, merciless. My name stood next to my parents' names, neatly written in black and white: First National Bank versus Richard Dent, Mary Dent, and Paula Dent. They were dragging us all to court for every cent of the debt, for interest, for penalties, for everything they could tack on. 42,000, damn it, 42. I sat on the couch, clutching the complaint to my knees, my hands shaking so violently, as if I were holding not the paper but a vibrator. It felt like I was being slowly drowned, only the water at least muffled the sound, whereas this didn't. My own parents, without wasting a second, had dragged me down, as if I were ballast and not a person. I stared at those sheets of paper until the letters swam, turning into black, snaking lines, burns on the white paper, each sentence cut deeper than the last. I knew things were bad, but not to this extent. 42,000 wasn't bad, suing wasn't bad, it will change my life wasn't bad. I didn't sleep a wink that night, I didn't even try. In the morning, I dialed the lawyer who'd promised a free consultation. I told him everything: the guarantor, the late payments, how my money had disappeared, how I'd been tormented for months by a sense of duty and shame. He listened calmly, as if dictating a textbook. If you're the guarantor, you're jointly and severally liable. The bank has the right to demand the entire amount from you. But I didn't take out this loan, I croaked. You guaranteed it, that's the point of a guarantor. I closed my eyes. Can I sue my parents? Formally, yes, but without written proof of their obligations, it'll be one word against another, and even if you win, they have no property, it will be a decision that cannot be carried out. When I hung up, I felt empty inside, as if everything had been sucked out of my chest, leaving only a fragile frame. That evening, I made my choice: I will not give $1 voluntarily, not a cent. Let them collect what they are supposed to, let the court decide. I will no longer burn myself out for someone else's warmth. 2 weeks after receiving the lawsuit, my phone vibrated, an unknown number. I hung up, they called back, hung up again. The third time, I cursed and answered. Hello, Paula, it's Dad, don't hang up. I exhaled slowly, lest I lose my temper. What do you need? We need to discuss the lawsuit, he said in that matter-of-fact tone, as if he were talking about postponing dinner. We've been sued too, we need a united front. I chuckled, a sharp, sour laugh. A united front? Is this when I'm crying, and you're living peacefully again? We're family, we have to figure this out together. We stopped being together the moment you decided I had to ruin myself so you could go wherever you wanted. Don't be dramatic, he snapped. Dramatic? I've already paid over $8,000 for a loan I didn't take out. And when I asked you to take responsibility, you made a monster out of me. He tried to slip into his usual "we didn't ask." Every "you can just this once" was a request. There was silence on the other end. And why, tell me, did Mom try to access my new account? Why did she break into my apartment? There was no answer. I hung up. 3 weeks before the trial, the bank called. Miss Dent, we want to avoid trial. If you pay $25,000 in one lump sum, we're willing to settle the case. $25,000. I had $3,000 at most, maybe, if I scraped together every last penny. I don't have that kind of money. Do you have a car? Pension savings? Anything? I'm 24. Without a settlement, the judgment could exceed $40,000. After the call, I sat on my bed, speechless. Even if I sold everything I owned, I still wouldn't have been enough. I called Evan. He arrived without hesitation. Beside him, I told him everything, straight up, without filters, without trying to justify my parents. When I finished, he simply took my hands. If you sell everything now, you'll have nothing left, and your parents will understand that you will always save them. I pressed my face against his shoulder, and the tears began to flow. His shirt was damp against his shoulder, but he didn't move, he didn't promise a happy ending, he didn't try to seal my reality with a pretty lie, he simply held me close. Sometimes that's the only support that truly saves. Judgment Day came upon me long before I could prepare. I stepped into the cramped, icy courtroom, where the lights hissed overhead so brightly, as if deliberately trying to sap the last of my strength. My parents were already seated, and not alone, with a lawyer, their lawyer. Frankly, I couldn't even imagine where they'd found the money for a lawyer while I stood alone before this nightmare, like a beached shark after a storm. They didn't even look at me. The bank's lawyer spoke dryly and confidently. Payment history, late payment reminders, signatures, including my name, branded into the story. My parents' lawyer lamented their dire financial situation. Then the judge looked up at me. Miss Dent, why did you stop paying? I felt the words catch in my throat. I couldn't take it anymore, Your Honor. I was paying $800 a month for a loan I didn't take out. I missed rent. I begged them to pay, but they didn't. For a moment, a hint of sympathy flickered in his gaze, just a moment. The decision sounded like a sentence: $41,800, joint and several liability of all defendants, payment plan, $600 per month. If one of us doesn't pay, the bank has the right to deduct from our paychecks. The hearing was adjourned. As I left the courtroom, my mother approached me with the expression of a blissful martyr. Paula, we need to discuss how we'll split the payments. I looked at her as if I'd never seen her before. No, that's up to you and Dad. I'll pay whatever they deduct, that's all. So, you're leaving us? She flared. You left me 7 months ago, I replied, full stop. I turned and walked away. 2 weeks later, the first notice of a lien arrived, $400. My parents had filed for financial hardship. They were assigned $200, I was assigned $400. And then, a month later, another letter: your co-borrowers are delinquent, the total amount of the lien is $600. Of course, the whole burden was on me again. And strangely, for the first time in months, I felt relief. $600, less than the $800 I'd voluntarily forked over, and no more manipulation, hysterical messages, or attempts to gain access to my accounts. The money was being withdrawn automatically, exactly what the bank demanded. In some incredibly perverse sense, the court's decision gave me freedom. The months ticked by. I got used to the new rhythm. I became more careful with my budget. The wounds inside me began to heal slightly. I got a promotion at work. I'm now a senior coordinator, an extra $5,000 a year. My boss said I handled my responsibilities with rare fortitude. Despite everything I'd been through, those words seemed to straighten me up. Then my cousin Emily wrote, I remember you paying their bills and barely living on food. You did the right thing. I blinked back tears. Someone finally saw what I'd been through. A year passed, then a second. I built up my safety net again. I moved to a better apartment. My credit score slowly recovered. I started looking at smaller apartments, modest, but mine. After a year and a half, my arrears dropped to $400. And in the third year of this hell, I bought a one-room apartment, peeling walls, ugly carpeting, but every square inch was mine. I didn't tell my parents. It wasn't revenge, it was my peace of mind. And then one day, on a quiet weekday, the bank called. Ms. Dent, the representative said, your loan is paid off, the final payment has been received. Excuse me? I breathed out. I thought there was still a year left. The primary borrowers made a lump sum payment. My parents. An hour later, my father called. We paid off the debt, he said wearily. It was our responsibility. We were wrong about everything. I could hardly breathe. A week later, a letter arrived from my mother. Paula, I've been going to therapy for 6 months now. I now understand what we did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know. I'm learning. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. If not, I'll accept it. Love you, Mom. I didn't reply, but I kept the letter. Towards the end of the month, Emily visited me. As we parted, she hugged me tightly and whispered, You made it out, you really made it out. After she left, I stepped out onto my tiny balcony. The evening city roared below, cars, lights, people with their own paths and their own wounds. Life went on. 3 years ago, I was drowning. Now I had air, support, silence, and a home that truly belonged to me. I exhaled into the night air. You can't burn yourself to warm others. I closed the balcony door, turned the key, and turned off the light, and for the first time in monstrously long years, I felt truly safe in my own home.